Habits are the invisible architecture to our daily lives. Everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Teddy. If you know anything about me, you'll know that I'm absolutely obsessed with habits. I spend a lot of time and energy thinking about habits that I currently have and thinking about new habits that I can integrate to improve my life overall. In this video, I'm going to teach you what a habit is. I'm going to teach you how to build a lasting habit. And in the process, hopefully, you'll be able to integrate these. You'll take this information and improve your life overall. I've read nearly every major book about habits, and I've learned so much along the way. And now here I am sharing this knowledge with you. I recall one statistics from one of these books saying that around 40% of our actions are repeated daily. Let that sink in for a second. Nearly half of all of our actions are repeated, which means that these are actions we're not even thinking of doing, and we're doing them over and over and over again. Imagine how impactful that is to the trajectory of our lives. And imagine how much more powerful it is if we take a moment to zoom out and look at these actions that we're repeating over and over and over again. And if necessary, we can make adjustments to them to make our lives that much better. If the stars have somehow aligned and you found your way to this video, congrats. You're already interested in habits. You're already interested in improving your life. Quick little plug here. If you are interested in creating a better life for yourself, if you're interested in being more happy, you've come to the right place. One thing that I've learned from reading all of these books about habits and studying habits and thinking about habits in general is that in order to have a happy life, it's important to create or cultivate an atmosphere of growth. This atmosphere of growth includes learning often, helping other people, feeling stronger, feeling like you can try out new things and learn new things, forging new relationships, and overall just things getting better in your life. How do you cultivate this atmosphere of growth? Well, the key is in forming lasting, healthy habits. These habits are important because they help us to be consistent and to show reliable progress. By the way, before I get into how to create habits, I'd like to thank you for being here and for showing up consistently to my videos. It means a lot to me. I spend a lot of time and energy creating these videos for you, trying to generate value of some sort for you so that you can improve your lives. It would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe to my channel and share this video with someone that you think might find this interesting. Thank you. I'm breaking this video down into 3 sections. The first section is how habits are formed. The second section is why they stick. And the third section is how to rewire your brain so that you can build better habits. Now, as you all know, I am a teacher, so I want you to envision yourself as a student in my classroom. Section 1. How are habits formed? Well, to understand how habits are formed, what is a habit? A habit is an action that we do on a repeated basis that we no longer have to make a decision to do. If you're making a choice, a conscious choice to do it, it is just an action. It is not a habit. When you transition from no longer thinking about the action and doing it repeatedly, that's when you know that it is a habit. Quick example, brushing your teeth. You no longer have to think about brushing your teeth in the morning because it's been a part of your routine since longer than you can remember. It is a habit because you don't have to think to brush your teeth. Now that you understand what a habit is, how do they work? How do they function? In the book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, the author introduces a concept called the habit loop, which serves to explain how habits function. The habit loop consists of 3 parts: the cue, the routine, and the reward. The cue is what triggers the action that is about to happen. The routine is the action that has been repeated over and over again. And the reward is how you feel after you do that action. So a quick example for you, a cue might be you waking up. The routine might be you immediately checking your phone. And then the reward would be the dopamine hit because you see that you have notifications or you're able to respond to family or friends. That simple loop right there explains an entire habit that you no longer have to think about. And it's important to note that this applies to either good or bad habits. Now, if you're well versed in habits already, then maybe you've heard that good and bad habits are not necessarily good terms to use. As I was reading all of these habit books, I saw some authors talk about how it's better to use effective and not effective habits. Whatever you choose, think about what they mean to you and how they apply to your own life. I love the fact that this concept is called the habit loop because loop implies that something will happen over and over and over again, unless maybe it's interrupted. Loop is important here because this action that happens over and over again actually means a lot when it comes to habit formation and repeating these actions. It's no coincidence that our brain is trying to repeat these actions. There are a couple of reasons why. First, as a teacher, I understand that repeating actions or simply doing is an incredibly effective way to learn something. In my classroom, I'm really focused on the experience, and I'm always trying to get my kids to actually do things because I know that that's going to help them learn in the long run, and it's going to really help them form those neural pathways in their brains that are formed when actions are repeated over and over again. Something that I think is absolutely fascinating about the brain is that one, it consumes a lot of the energy that we use on a daily basis. And so one of its jobs is to reduce cognitive load and in a way save energy so that we can do other things. Well, one of the ways that it saves energy and reduces cognitive load is by repeating actions. Believe it or not, the process of not having to make a decision and think out every step of an action and just doing it because it's a habit saves a lot of time and energy, and the brain is conscious of that, and that helps to reduce the cognitive load. This is what makes a task or a habit and an action automatic. So now that statistic that I provided earlier, that about 40% of our actions every day are repeated, makes a lot more sense in context because our brain is just trying to be efficient. Moving right along. In section 1, we talked about the habit loop, which is the cue, the routine, and the reward. That is how habits function. And then we also talked about how our brains form habits. In section 2, we're going to talk about why habits stick. This will be crucial for your understanding of habits in general, and that will help you in your own habit journey as you try to improve your life one little action at a time. In another book that I read about habits, Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, the author shares an important point that emotions are directly connected to why we repeat a behavior. We are emotional creatures, and there's a direct connection by how we feel when we do an action and us doing that action again. In this section, I'm going to highlight the importance of dopamine and why habits stick. When we feel good and when we feel these positive emotions when we do an action, then our bodies, our brains are going to want us to do that again and again and again. And that's only going to serve to reinforce that habit, and it's going to create those neural pathways, and it just becomes cemented in our behavior. This is how and why habits stick. There's a dopamine spike. Our bodies recognize that we feel good during that moment and when we do that action, and it's going to want us to do it again. But be very careful here, because just because we're feeling these dopamine hits and we're feeling good emotions doesn't mean that that action or that habit is necessarily good for us. This is not rocket science, as you can see. And I hope by now in this video you have learned a few things about habits, and it's motivated you to look at your own life and the habits that you do every single day. This leads me to section 3, which is how to rewire our brains to build better habits. Pay close attention to the words that I'm actually using here intentionally. Rewire is a word that I'm using because these are neural pathways that have already been formed in our brains. Better habits, meaning these habits already exist, but we want to improve them. Another important concept that I learned from all of these books about habits is that you can't actually get rid of a habit. All you can do is change it. So that leads me back to section 1, which is the habit loop. The habit loop is cue, routine, and reward. How do we change these habits so that they can become better for our lives? Well, the key is in changing the routine. I mentioned a quick example earlier in this video where the cue was waking up, the routine was grabbing your phone and checking and scrolling through it, and then the reward was seeing that you had notifications from friends. So if you wanted to change that habit, make it a better habit for you, change the routine. So wake up, that's your trigger, that's your cue. Second thing is, instead of grabbing your phone, maybe you have it off somewhere that you can't even give yourself the option of grabbing it, pick up a book, start reading immediately. And then the reward would be different, but you still get a positive dopamine spike because maybe you learned something interesting or you really enjoy the book that you're reading, and you're still getting that dopamine hit. And so in essence, you're not getting rid of this habit, but you're making it better, because reading a book is obviously much better than subjecting your eyes to this blue light as soon as you wake up in the morning and scrolling mindlessly on social media apps. Now you may be wondering, all right, Mr. Ted, how do I figure out all of these other habits in my life that I want to improve or make better? Well, a suggestion for you is to identify triggers. And so this is going to require you to maybe look a little bit inwards and pay a little bit more attention to these actions that you're doing, which might be a little unusual because you actually don't have to pay attention to these actions that you're repeating daily. But keep a little log, keep a little journal, and try to pay attention. What are the cues in my life that are triggering actions? There are so many. Think about your routines in the morning, maybe during lunch, and then in the afternoon. What is triggering you to do an action, or what is happening right before you do an action that you do every single day? That will be a cue. write it down, and then you can analyze it later. Once you do that, then you can think of creative ways to swap out the routine so that you can make it more effective. There's endless ways to do that, so I'm not going to get too much into that, but get creative with it, have fun, and think about the things that you could do for yourself that would be better than current actions or habits that you have in your life. And then lastly, think about the reward. Once again, the reason why habits stick is because we feel good. We feel dopamine when we do this action. And so, what's something that you can do intentionally to ensure that this new, better habit sticks in your life? I'll give an example from my own life. I've been working out for a really long time, but sometimes I don't feel like working out, either because I'm tired or I'm lazy or some other reason. But I still get myself to go to the gym, and I come back home and I make sure to reward myself so that I'm reinforcing that habit over and over again. And in my case, it's making a delicious protein smoothie. I love my smoothies. I drink 2 every single day, and that serves as my reward. It doesn't matter if in the future I'm going to feel this feeling again. Chances are that will happen. I know that my body and my brain will expect that reward, and so I can rely on my habit loop, my routine to go to the gym and then come back because I know I'll get that protein shake. Little bonus tip for you: think about your environment. Design it in such a way that it helps you with your habit loops, with your cues, your routines, and rewards. The more you're intentional about the way you design your behaviors, the way you design your habits, the better chance that they'll serve you well and that they'll be better for your life. That's it. Habits are not complicated at all, but because they are the invisible architecture of our daily lives, it requires some intentionality and going back to the drawing board to determine if we can improve our habits and if we can improve the overall well-being of our lives. Conveniently, I made another video about habits, which is 5 underrated habits to improve your health. If you're already motivated and you're jazzed up about revisiting and looking at some of the habits in your life, check out this video and I guarantee it'll give you some ideas about how to improve your health. As always, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, share this with a friend, and I'll see you in next week's video.